can you see the issue with that? Like, it's not as obvious, but that dynamic of taking until it's no longer popular, that's problematic. Point blank period. It's problematic. Hi, my name is Nappy and today we're going to be talking about something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about something a little controversial. So, if you haven't known already, one of our favorite artists who can sing like a black auntie did something kind of out of character. So, I'll show you the picture. So, it's basically a picture of Adele wearing a Jamaican flag bikini with Bantu Knots. Apparently, context, she was going, or this is like an old picture, and she was going to a carnival in London. So there's a lot of Caribbean people in London, so I guess that's not too much out of context. And basically, when she posted that picture on Instagram, it caused some people to start talking. So in this video, we're going to be kind of discussing and looking at what Adele did, and is it cultural appreciation or cultural appropriation? Stay tuned if you want to hear more about the subject, because I have a lot to say.
To you that you never knew all the things you say, they were never true in the games you play, you would always win, always win. But I set fire to the rain.
Okay, so what is cultural appropriation? I looked up the definition to give you an exact, like a certified definition. Granted, it's Wikipedia, but it is what it is. Cultural appropriation is the adaptation of an element or elements of one culture or identity by members of another culture or identity. This can be controversial when members of a dominant culture appropriate from disadvantaged minority cultures. That's basically the definition of what cultural appropriation is. I don't think it's a good enough definition because it doesn't really explain why or what is the issue when it comes to cultural appropriation. So I kind of came up with my own system of figuring out whether something is or is not cultural appropriation and why it is problematic. One of the reasons why cultural appropriation can be problematic is because it can misrepresent like a culture and oversimplify that culture. The door just closed on its own. Okay. Anyways, basically, like, taking from another culture and doing things that another culture is doing is not necessarily a bad thing, but when you cross the line of where you are misrepresenting someone's culture and basically showcasing that culture in a very narrow viewpoint, that's when cultural appropriation can kind of be problematic, because it's like you're taking something you know nothing about and just doing it, not realizing how you doing it can lead to like people not understanding that culture you're taking from. I have an analogy for you. So say you have a friend, and this friend is really popular and also rich, and you only want to be that person's friend because they're popular and because they're rich. So you're just taking from this person because they're popular and rich. And the moment they lose their popularity and their wealth, you go away. Like, you can see how that dynamic is problematic when it comes to friends. I think that dynamic can be very similar to when people take from other people's cultures and take. And then the moment that culture is no longer popping or trending or nobody cares about it, you disregard it and ignore it and just let the discrimination go back to where it started. Can you see the issue with that? Like, it's not as obvious, but that dynamic of taking until it's no longer popular, that's problematic. Point blank period. It's problematic. And like, in general, if someone is getting recognition for doing something that you have done first, it's annoying. It doesn't even matter if it's like culturally or just like in the workplace. If someone gets credit and recognition for something that you came up with, you started, you did, you're going to be annoyed, regardless if you have the right to be or not. When it comes to traditionally black hairstyles and white people, that trend shows itself again, where a white person does something that a black person has originally done, that white person gets a lot more recognition and praise for that thing that somebody else did. So regardless if you think cultural appropriation is a thing or people just overdo it or whatever, you cannot tell me that that isn't annoying. The last point is when you're profiting off another culture and that culture doesn't get money from their own culture. Like that type of dynamic. So it's like Kim Kardashian being praised and loved and, you know, gets extra likes on Instagram by embodying something that is of Black culture, while Black women who actually do those things and have been doing those things don't get that same recognition, that same like influence, that same like potential to make money off of it as somebody who's white. So like that to me is where you cross over to like tangible, like this is problematic. I feel like up until that point it's just like this isn't good, but it's not horrible. But once you cross over to one group, the dominant group can make money off of it, but the people who started it and who are not the dominant group cannot make money off of it, that's where the issues lie. And I think everything that I just said is just a way of showing like there's a power imbalance. It's a power dynamic that's not favorable. Like it's not specifically that someone else is taking something from another person's culture and using it. It's basically everything outside of it, everything around it. So it's like because that dominant person is taking from the non-dominant group, they are able to do things that non-dominant group cannot do, right? And so because of that imbalance, it's hard to flip the scripts and be like, well, Black women wear straight hair or Black women wear blonde hair. Back to my point of like, it's not the fact that white people do Black hairstyles that's problematic. It's basically everything around that. It's the power imbalance around it. So one, straight hair or blonde hair will never go out of style. Straight hair or blonde hair will never be misrepresented. We recognize that white people are the people who have straight hair and blonde hair. Like there's no question. Nobody else can start that trend. There's no power imbalance. So that's why you can't really flip it, because it's like, it's not the taking, it's the power imbalance that is the problem. So, is what Adele did cultural appropriation? Before I give my answer, I'm going to give the responses. I did a little research to see how people responded, and I'm gonna basically kind of summarize how different people responded to this and how other things kind of like encompass this, and then I'll give my final answer. Alright, so based off of Twitter, if you look up Bantu Knots Adele, there's a lot more negative comments than Bantu Knots Jamaica. So I'm gonna just start with the Bantu Knot part, because the main people who are irritated about her wearing Bantu knots are African Americans. It seems that African Americans are very irritated about the fact that Adele took an African American hairstyle to wear to a carnival. Yeah, it wasn't favorable on the Bantu side or on the side of African Americans. And I think it's very interesting when you look up Adele and Jamaica, it's mainly Jamaicans talking about it, and it's hilarious. They're having a great time. They're just like they're like doing parodies of her like speaking patois, or her dancing to not her dancing, but like her music over top of a reggae music. They're just having a great time. And a couple of them are kind of like, I don't want to say coming at African Americans, but basically being like, why are y'all tripping? You see, she took from our culture and we're having a great time, but yet you guys are here just like going crazy. And they're just like, I don't understand why. The person's just enjoying our culture and they're having a great time. So what's the problem? And then there was another point that I didn't even consider, but basically somebody was like, Bantu knots come from Africa. Jamaican carnival and Jamaican flag come from Jamaica and the Caribbean. So why are the African Americans upset? Like, I didn't even think about that. Like, I was like, oh yeah, Bantu knots, Black hairstyle. But in reality, Bantu knots originate from Africa. Like, they're not even an African American hairstyle. And then people also brought up the fact of like Black is King and how Beyonce, a non-African, like she's African American, she is a descendant of an African slave in America. She's a descendant of an African slave, but she's not African. And she basically did a whole visual album thing, video thing, movie thing, but visual album / movie thing about Africa, basically. It was basically like her version. If she was the director of Lion King, that's basically what that was. Based off of my timeline, there was a lot of Africans who loved her for doing that. They were like, thank you for putting our culture out there for other people to see. Thank you for like including African artists in your visual album that like wouldn't get recognized otherwise. And I also want to point out another thing that's very interesting that is different between Black Americans and Caribbeans, like the music in general, like how they handle music, I guess that's a better way of saying it. But Caribbean people will have a rhythm. No, I'm not gonna say it, but a rhythm. They say it a different way, and I'm not going to try to imitate it, but they have a rhythm, and different artists can use the same rhythm in different songs, and everybody gets credit for it, right? But in America, like, people are very protective about their music. Like, if you don't pay me, you don't get credit for it. Like, it's just like, what is mine, don't touch it. And I think it's very interesting. In Caribbean culture, it's like, this one song can be given to a whole bunch of people. They all get credit for it. They all get money from it, and like everybody's happy. So I think, what if, like, I'm just speculating, like, what if that's also a reason why there was such a difference in response to Adele's picture? But just to say, like, just to sum it all up, it's just interesting how the African Americans were very upset about it, and the other part of the diaspora didn't care. And so I personally don't have a huge issue with what she did. To be honest, I don't have a huge issue. Does she look flattering in the picture? No. And in my points before, do I think that she's profiting off of wearing Bantu Knots and going to a Caribbean carnival? No. Is she using her power and influence to do something that other people can't do? No. Is she misrepresenting Caribbean culture, African culture, or African American culture? I don't think she is. Do I think that she only cares about the cool part of the culture and nothing else? No, I actually don't think she does. I think she very much so cares about our community, knows more than just surface stuff about our community. So based off of my, I guess, standards, I personally don't think she appropriated anything. I think she just wanted to be a part, and she did. I know some people might be shocked by what I just said, but like, based off of my standards, I don't think she broke any of them. She just wanted to be a part of a thing, and when you go to that certain thing, that's how you dress. And she was just like, let me be a little special, and she did it. Like, I don't think that yelling and arguing and trying to cancel someone for appropriating a culture, especially when they're not benefiting from it with money, I don't think it's worth the art. I don't think it's worth the fight. Is she doing anything harmful? No, she's not. She's not. But is it ideal? No. To conclude my video, I just want to say that I think there is an importance of context when we talk about things like this. And the reason why I'm saying like context matters, because a lot of times the only identifier for cultural appropriation is majority took something from minority. And personally, I don't think that's enough context to explain fully what cultural appropriation is. When I use it, it's okay, but when you do it, it's not okay. And because it's okay that I use it, I can get things out of it and you can't. That is the issue. So when we only focus on the taking part, I feel like it oversimplifies the actual issue and it makes us distracted of what we should be focusing on. It's power and balance that we should be focusing on. We should be working towards like getting people to accept Black culture for what it is and not making someone else make it cool in order for us to be accepted. It's not that someone thinks our culture is cool and wants to do something that we do. The taking part just highlights the issue, but it's not the issue. And I wanted to say that. Tell me what you think below. Do you actually think this was cultural appropriation? Or do you just think people are just losing their minds and doing the utmost for something that doesn't matter? That concludes this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, but normally I upload on Fridays. So definitely check me out on Fridays if you're new. Ooh. And don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe. Do that. But see you guys on Friday. Bye.